Welcome, listeners, to Channel 88.1 FM, KFHC Ponca, Sioux City, and KOIA Storm Lake. This is Siouxland Catholic Radio, and this show is Faith in Action. I'm your host, Joanne Fox, and maybe it's 9 a.m. on a Monday and you're listening, or maybe it's 7 p.m. on a Saturday and you're listening, or maybe you went right to our website, SiouxlandCatholicRadio.com, clicked on Faith in Action, and there you can listen to the show at your convenience, and we so appreciate that. And other Faith in Action shows can also be found on our website and on Spotify and on a number of other podcasting platforms. That's all due to the generosity of Mary's Choice, a Sioux City Pregnancy Resource Center, which is the exclusive underwriter for this show. We are so grateful for their support. We are also so grateful for all of your support, listeners. So, this is kind of an annual thing for me. I reach out to the Siouxland Chamber of Commerce. Every year they have an annual dinner or an annual event. And so now is the time, listeners, to go get a piece of paper and a pencil, or maybe whip out your phone and put in this date. Thursday, September 25th. The doors open at 5:15 p.m. It is at the Sioux City Convention Center, and I will give you more information as the show goes on, but that's the most important thing you want to write down is Thursday, September 25th. Again, doors open at 5:15. There's always a dinner, and then the speaker then comes on after that. And I am so tickled to have on the phone with me this year's speaker for the Chamber Annual Dinner. It is General Paul Nakasone, and he is on the phone with me. So welcome to the program, General Paul.
Hey, Joanne, thanks so much for your time. It's great to spend a little bit of time with you and your listeners today. It's really a pleasure.
Well, I am so glad that you be able to take time out of your busy schedule to talk. And I guess, first off, why don't you tell the listeners a little bit about yourself?
Sure. Paul Nakasone. I grew up in White Bear Lake, Minnesota. I am a native Minnesotan. I went to school at St. John's University in central Minnesota, a men's Benedictine university. And after I graduated, I went into the Army, and I thought, 4 years, and I'll come back to Minnesota, and 37 years later, I retired. So I am excited now to join you in the Heartland to talk a little bit about my experiences in the Army and a little bit about the world in general.
Well, how interesting. I did not know that you were a Minnesotan, so at least you don't sound like my relatives up in North Dakota. Yeah, sure, you betcha. You sound almost like I do.
Well, give it time, Joanne. I can talk with Minnesotans with the best of them.
Okay, good to hear. So you've had all this military experience. What is it that you're doing right now, even though you retired in 2024? What is it exactly that you're doing now?
There are three things that I'm spending my time on right now, Joanne. First of all, I'm leading a new Institute of National Security at Vanderbilt University in Nashville, Tennessee, with the idea of developing the next generation of national security workers. They're going to come in and really secure our nation. The second piece is I'm doing a lot of public speaking. I'm thrilled to be able to be in Sioux City on the 25th of September. And the last piece is I sit on a number of boards, to include a board called OpenAI.
And you know, that is such a hot topic right now, OpenAI. I mean, it humbles me. And I just got to share with the listeners, I'm kind of a stalker on Twitter and Facebook and Instagram. But on Twitter, I will stop and I'll watch these little videos. They're usually very short. And then underneath the video, it'll say, this is generated by, AI or Chat GPT or whatever. And then I have to go back and look at it. And so in my mind, I'm asking myself, what now is really real and what is not?
Yeah, and I would tell you, Joanne, think about the most disruptive technology that we've seen during our lifetimes. And I would offer to you, it's probably the smartphone. Think how much it changed, how we shop, how we communicate, how do we watch TV now? But I would tell you that the disruptive technology of today, tomorrow, and well into the future is artificial intelligence. And I look forward to talking a little bit about that at the Siouxland Chamber of Commerce.
And again, I understand that there's pluses. I mean, you think back to when they first introduced television and radio, and people saw downsides to those things. And then, of course, there were pluses. And I guess I understand that there are pluses that can be garnered from this new technology. What would you say are some of the pluses?
Well, let's think about two of the pluses, and I'll start with education. You know, for all of us that have ever struggled through mathematics, wouldn't it be wonderful to have like your personal tutor on your smartphone or on your laptop or on your iPad, someone that can really explain to you at your pace what is occurring? Think of that not only for our best students, but think about those young people that perhaps struggle with reading. The ability for us to really further our educational capabilities is going to be immense. The second piece is truly health. Think about what artificial intelligence will mean to drug discovery, what it will mean to being able to diagnose diseases early on. Think about what it actually means to be able to get at some of the precursors of what makes us ill. I think those are the two things that I think about education and healthcare when I think about the benefits of AI for the future.
Yeah, and of course, with the benefits come some downsides, and I imagine you're probably going to share some of those downsides with me now.
I think so. I think that as we take a look at life, we take a look at it, whether or not it's looking at the way that artificial intelligence might be used for cybersecurity ill purposes, or whether it might be used for deep fakes, or whether it could be, disruptive to our jobs. These are all areas that I think we have to discuss and we have to be able to understand. But I also think that they're all very mitigatable.
Oh, that's good to hear. And I guess it means then that we have to be vigilant in what it is we're seeing and hearing, because that means that you are just a good consumer of information.
I couldn't agree more. I think the word that you used is really important, Joanne, vigilant. This is what I get asked all the time about, hey, I'm on my smartphone. How do I make sure that I don't get hacked or I don't get my identity stolen? The first thing begins with this idea of vigilance. If it's too good to be true, it's too good to be true. But with that also comes a number of different measures, whether or not it's two-factor authentication, whether or not it's a password manager, whether or not it's strong passwords. These are things that we've got to be able to understand with a degree of data transformation that's taking place in our society today.
And just the whole cyber threats, I'm so glad you mentioned that, because again, I look on my phone an awful lot, and I'm on Facebook quite a bit too. Most of the listeners know that. And the question becomes, when can I be hacked, and how can I be vigilant? I mean, in this world today with just all this cyber intelligence going on, and this is just little me here in Sioux City, Iowa, and I think on a greater scale, cybersecurity for our country. Wow, it's almost, I don't know, it takes my breath away almost.
Well, I think that's why, what I learned during my last 6 years leading both the National Security Agency and U.S. Cyber Command was we have incredible powers in terms of being able to protect ourselves. What we have to do not only is be vigilant, but also think about different partnerships. How do we bring together the public and the private side? How do we bring together the public, the private, and academic side? How do we develop really a very savvy user going into the future? And those are some of the things that I want to talk about when I come out to Sioux City on the 25th.
Wow, and that is almost takes my breath away when you think about the collaboration that is so necessary. And you hit the top three there, public, private, and education. And maybe I'd even throw in healthcare just as a sideline too. But here's the challenge. I see it, and maybe you can kind of help me understand a little better. Wow, our society is so polarized, and it has been for quite some time. I remember the good old days where, individuals would cross party lines, cross religious lines, cross educational lines, just so they would come together on a consensus. And so much of what I'm seeing and hearing, not amongst my own friends and family, but just, I guess, again, on this whole internet universe, is a lot of times it's my way or the highway.
Well, here's what I would tell you, is that I think that cybersecurity is one of those issues that really is a bipartisan issue. I mean, if we want our economy strong, if we want our nation to be secure, if we want to look at a future for our children that's going to be as robust and hopeful as it was in the past, it involves us being able to secure the Internet and what we do on the Internet. And I think that is an issue that brings both parties together. Now, I think what we have to do is, how do we do that together in a manner that's safe and secure and effective going forward?
Well, that is the $64,000 question, and I think I just dated myself with that reference. But that is, with this incredibly rapidly changing world, it just takes my breath away when I think about it. How do we come together? I mean, what tactics could we possibly use to bring us all together?
Well, I think one of the things is that we are an innovative nation. And one of the things, not to give too much of a spoiler piece to what I'm going to talk about, is what are the real opportunities and what's the competitive advantage of our nation? One of the things I would tell you is the fact that we innovate better than anyone in the world. So how do we take that innovation and apply it to such problems as making sure that ransomware doesn't affect our hospitals, or ransomware doesn't affect our cities, or the fact that deepfakes might provide some type of indicator or some type of advantage to one part or the other. These are the things that I think that we have to come together and we've got to be able to solve.
And I really appreciate that you said that whole thing about the innovation stuff, because I have always thought that Americans are innovative and creative. And yet the other day I was listening to some program on a talk radio station, and this woman was talking about how younger people aren't as creative as they used to be. And she attributed that to the fact that they're always on their cell phones, and you can find out just about any answer to any question or any thing you want to know about. You just go to the cell phones. And when I was teaching at the college level, and I taught mostly English composition, I used to kind of beat it into my students that the ability to communicate with the written word is probably the most important thing, other than being reliable and dependable, in a job. And this woman was insisting that that has segued now, that employers are looking for individuals who are creative and, of course, have the ability to communicate. So I just thought, this is such a segue. Is this what we're seeing now? Is our younger folks, because of their dependence on the Internet and Google for all their answers, is the creativity?
I guess, Joanne, I would share with you, I don't see that. Let me offer a story that I think is pretty representative of what I think is really happening. I would go to technology firms throughout the United States during my 6 years as the director of the National Security Agency. And invariably, every place I went to, the people that talked to me were half my age. And that is representative of the ideas of innovation and creativity that are out there. I think what's really important is what you hit on. What are the important 3 C's that we've got to make sure that our young people continue to have? First of all, can they think critically? Secondly, to your point, can they communicate? And the third piece, again, character. Those 3 C's, I think, are the foundation of being successful now and well into the future.
Wow, I think you hit the nail right on the head there. And, of course, I haven't been teaching now for a few years. I retired from that field. And so my interest and what's going on is pretty much what I hear and read. So that really affirms my belief then in our younger people, as they will step up to be the leaders someday. And we talked a little bit about, the whole vigilance part. And there's also kind of a morality and ethical issue that goes along with cyber security as well, and the whole Internet. And maybe you could talk about that a little bit, the ethics and the morality of it.
Well, I think, this comes back to character, right? What is character? Character is what you are in the dark. And then being able to apply that to your daily life. One of the most important things is being able to understand what is right and what is wrong, and then being able to put that into action. Now, these are the things that I think, come from, our parents, our fellow adults, our teachers, our organized religions. These are the things that really separate, I think, those that are operating ethically and morally from those that are not.
Well, I'm so glad you mentioned that, because, yes, our parents, our teachers, our educational background, they do develop all the skills we need to be a good citizen in this world. But one of the other things, our education. And I would be remiss if I didn't ask you to tell the listeners a little bit about your education, which I believe that occurred in some Catholic atmospheres.
It did. I would share with you the most foundational piece of my education took place during my 4 years of undergraduate education at St. John's University in Collegeville, Minnesota. It was the idea of applying the Benedictine tradition to not only learning, but how you lead your life. Now, I would also tell you that as a practicing Catholic, one of the things my wife and I have been truly beneficiaries of over 20 different moves in the Army, that we were able to educate our kids in parochial schools for the most part, and they are the beneficiaries of that education.
Yeah, very much so. My children, too, come out of a Catholic school background in addition to a Catholic higher education background as well. And I think it did. It set the foundation for them to be productive citizens that they are today, and I'm very proud of that. And so I think it's real interesting, that you find that as important as I do, and maybe a lot of our listeners as well.
I agree. I think that there's nothing more important than your own children, and being able to see them thrive and in an atmosphere that really nourishes their degree of intellectual learning and their moral teachings. I think that that's really one of the things that we look back on and say, boy, weren't we fortunate.
Yes, we really, truly were. And listeners, if you are just tuning in right now, I want to remind you that this is Siouxland Catholic Radio. This show is Faith in Action. I'm your host, Joanne Fox. It airs every Monday at 9 a.m., every Saturday it replays at 7 p.m. And then you can always find us on SiouxlandCatholicRadio.com. You just click on Faith in Action. And so my guest today is General Paul Nakasone, and he is going to be the Siouxland Chamber annual dinner speaker this year, again Thursday, September 25th. And he's been sharing so many wonderful insights on things that really impact us. I mean, the whole cybersecurity and the intelligence and keeping ourselves safe, and your faith. And I guess I was wondering, you mentioned your family, and so tell us a little bit about your family.
Yes, so very interesting story. My father is a native of Hawaii, and during World War II, since he had spoken Japanese growing up, he came to Minnesota. Yes, Minnesota, to further learn his Japanese as part of the U.S. Army. And the reason he came to Minnesota is because the schools had all moved from California to Minnesota because of the racial hysteria on the West Coast. And so when he came back from the war, he didn't know any other place but Minnesota. And so he wanted to go to Minnesota for his education. He met my mom, who's a native Minnesotan, and, as they say, the rest is history. But that's my background in terms of growing up in Minnesota.
And finally, I think I heard a little bit of the Minnesota accent when you said Minnesota. And that's fine. And then you mentioned your wife, and you have children?
Yes, wife and 4 kids.
Excellent. Are they adults?
They are all adults, yes, and we're very proud of them.
Oh, good to hear. And so I guess this is a question that I've been dying to ask you since you first came on the air, and I welcomed you. And, as a general, who would come up to you and say, all right, General, drop and give me 50?
Well, very few people would actually come up and tell me that. But if someone did come up and tell me that, and I would follow that, that would be my wife.
Ah, your wife. Okay. Well, and that makes sense, too. Very much so. So, as you know, this is kind of a public affairs program, and we encourage people to take advantage of the information that we publicize on this program. So maybe a listener is sitting there going, well, this is all very interesting. Joanne has on yet another fascinating guest, and I don't know, chamber dinner, yeah, I don't know. What would you say to them to maybe encourage them to attend this chamber dinner in which you are going to be speaking at?
Yeah, I think, Joanne, one of the things that I would first of all say is that I'm from the heartland. I'm not someone from the East Coast, the West Coast. I'm from Minnesota. So being able to come and hear someone of, I think our region is important. The second thing is, what is perhaps more interesting than talking about the world today? And I'm going to talk about it in 3 different arcs. I'm going to talk about the rise of China. I'm going to talk about the rise of technology. And I'm also going to talk about borderless challenges, things like cybersecurity and global pandemics. What does that mean for the future? And then I'm going to spend a fair amount of time talking about artificial intelligence as you and I discuss most disruptive technology of our time. And the last piece is, okay, so what does that mean to me? How do I take all of that and apply that to my daily life? I'm going to offer you some thoughts in terms of how do you apply artificial intelligence or cybersecurity, or how do you think about the world in general as you within Sioux City really kind of talk about and think about the way ahead.
Wow. And to me, that sounds fascinating. And so I'm looking forward to this chamber dinner event. Now, I've got to give you a heads up. Last year, we brought in John Andrazik, who sang Superman for us. And the year before that, Scott Mann, who talked about Pineapple Express. I don't know. These might be tough acts to follow. Oh, I guess I should ask you, do you sing like John?
So perhaps not, but I would tell you that the bar is pretty high. But, one of the things that I want to do is be able to show AI in action. And I think that some of the things that you're going to see on the demonstrations that I'm going to show are you just going to say, wow, I had no idea.
Well, yeah. Now, if that isn't a hook, I don't know what, because a lot of times, except for John Andrasik, who sang and played the piano, not a lot of people come to the chamber dinner with PowerPoint. So is that what you're sharing with me?
So I'm going to come with some ideas and some stories, and I think some demonstrations in terms of how you should take a look at going forward with your own lives.
Well, very good. And here's something I've got to ask you as well. You have opportunities to share this knowledge any place and everywhere. What was it about this event that you said to yourself, yeah, I think I'd like to come to Sioux City, Iowa?
So not very often do I get the opportunity to come back to the Midwest. And to come back to Iowa, a state I know so well and really respect, this was an easy ability to say yes. And for Sioux City, a town that I know quite well, I'm looking forward to being back in Sioux City on the 25th.
Oh, now that was kind of a spoiler there. How is it that you know Sioux City so well?
Well, so I was stationed at Fort Carson, Colorado, and Colorado Springs, so I spent a fair amount of time going between St. Paul, Minnesota, and Colorado Springs early on in my tour, and I would always stop in Sioux City. And if anyone has ever read Stephen Ambrose's book, Undaunted Courage, you know where the story begins. That's Sioux City.
Yes, very much so. And I know our listeners have read a book like that. So I am so grateful that you took time out of your very busy schedule, General Paul Nakasone. It has been just a delight to chat with you. And I know the listeners will try their best to come and attend. So again, listeners, I got to remind you, this is the Siouxland Chamber Annual Dinner. It is Thursday, September 25th. Its doors open at 5:15, and then the talk usually starts about 7-ish, and normally we're walking out the door about 9 o'clock. It is here in Sioux City at the Convention Center. There's great parking in ramps and off the street, and you can go to right to the chamber website, which is Siouxland. It's pretty easy, SiouxlandChamber.com. And then /events, and then all of that comes up about how much tickets are and where you can get the tickets, and don't delay. And listeners, you know as well as I do, they like people to get the tickets ahead of time, just so there's enough food for everybody. That just makes sense. That's what you do for a wedding reception or a high school reunion, whatever. They need to make sure that the caterers have enough food. Now, you walk in the door that night, September 25th, they'll probably find a chair for you, and they'll probably at least get you a salad. But you want the full effect of the dinner. So please, listeners, if you're going to go, reach out, and I think you can call the chamber too, but unfortunately I don't have that phone number on this handout they gave me. But you can just Google SiouxlandChamber.com, and everything is listed right there. So again, I want to thank my guest on Faith in Action, General Paul Nakasone, and he will be the featured speaker at this year's annual chamber dinner. Thank you so very much for taking time out of your very busy schedule to chat with me. I look forward to seeing you at the dinner, and I will come up and introduce myself.
Super, Joanne. Thank you so much, and thanks to the listeners. I'll see you all on the 25th of September.
Well, listeners, that wraps up another edition of Faith in Action. It's brought to you by Mary's Choice, a Sioux City Pregnancy Resource Center, which is the exclusive underwriter for this show. Previous Faith in Action shows can be found, including this one, at SiouxlandCatholicRadio.com, on Spotify, and on a number of other podcasting platforms. So, on behalf of myself, I'm the host of this show, Joanne Fox, and my executive producer, Ann Reed. I want to remind you, a faithful reaction is good, but faith in action is so much better. Thanks for listening, and God bless.